portraits of an 8th grader accused of murder. The jury would have to decide which Brandon McInerney they believed. Was he an unlikely victim, sexually harassed by a cross-dressing classmate with a not-so-secret crush on him? Or was he a homophobic white supremacist bent on killing?
One of the most damning things that I think they used against Brandon was his own words. Brandon himself told the psychologist that he was a homophobe, he didn't like gays, that the worst thing that could happen to them was that some young gay kid would talk to him.
A kid like Larry King. But reporter Zeke Barlow says the DA didn't just use Brandon's words against him, they used his possessions against him as well.
They brought out all these notebooks that they found in both his backpack as well as in his home. More than 150 pieces, I believe, of different doodles and drawings, and some were simple swastikas.
In court, Deputy District Attorney Maeve Fox tried to draw a link between those mysterious letters, SSL, found scribbled in Brandon's spiral notebooks, and white supremacy. She told jurors Brandon was living and associating with a hardcore gang of racists, the SSL, so similar to Hitler's SS. Jurors also listened to days and days of testimony on neo-Nazi ideology. And this man, self-avowed white separatist Matt Riome. Riome and Brandon's brother were once roommates.
I know you're not on trial, but how long did you live with Matt Riome?
For about 2 months.
You're good friends with him?
No, yeah, I've known him my whole life.
That's James at Riome's wedding.
He is an avowed white separatist, though.
Yes.
Was Brandon a white supremacist?
No.
How can you be so sure, James?
Because he has so many friends that are not white, you know, that he hung out with. Like, his best friend for his entire childhood is a black kid.
Matt Riome was to be the linchpin in the prosecution's case.
What was the link they were trying to make?
What I think they were trying to show is that Matt Riome educated Brandon on the beliefs of white supremacy, one of which obviously is anti-gay.
But Riome never actually testified.
DA said that they were going to bring him out, he was going to talk. Big part of their case. Nobody's been able to find him.
Kathy Listel is a private investigator working for the defense.
Should we see if we can find him?
She brought our cameras to this undisclosed location on the outskirts of Las Vegas. The DA couldn't track him down, but 2020 did.
And them here on camera with 2020.
Meet Matt Riome. Make no mistake, he has some very strong beliefs about keeping the white race pure.
I want to have a white family. You know, I love my family, and I want to make sure that our bloodline, you know, flourishes for as long as possible.
But Riome flatly denies advocating violence or teaching his racist beliefs to Brandon.
They wanted me to tell him, yeah, I told Brandon to go kill this kid, is what they wanted me to say.
Riome accuses the district attorney of looking for anything to tie Brandon to the white power movement.
They wanted to make him into a skinhead or a white supremacist, and, you know, somebody that hated Jews and gays and wanted to kill the person, you know, kill gays just for being gay. And they were going to use me as a tool to do it. They straight told me.
He goes so far as to say the prosecution threatened him, his wife, and his family if he refused to cooperate with their investigation. So he went into hiding.
They threatened to lock my wife and my dad up if I didn't tell them what they wanted to hear.
3 days before Larry King's murder, Matt Riome says Brandon did come to his door looking for his brother James, not him.
He showed up at the door crying. He's definitely troubled by something that's going on in his life. You know, I told him to be a good kid, sleep on the couch. You know, my wife gave him a pillow and a blanket, and we woke up in the morning, he was gone.
Matt Riome lived in a neighborhood called Silver Strand. Turns out SSL stands for Silver Strand Locals. But is it really a hotbed for neo-Nazis? We went there to see for ourselves. Silver Strand lies on the edge of Oxnard, a strip of land between 2 rock jetties.
Well, if we started the jetty here, it goes across down to here to the kiddie beach.
David Wentworth has lived in Silver Strand for more than 25 years. To him, this is a relaxed neighborhood with a strong sense of community.
Everybody keeps an eye on everybody else. There doesn't ever seem to be any problems here.
But prosecutors told a different story. They claimed the Silver Strand group, SSL, is a gang with neo-Nazi leanings. Matt Riome says that's not true.
I've never known it to be a gang. I've lived there for 30 years, and it's never been a gang to me.
But what about those symbols and tattoos some kids wear?
It's nothing more than OX. You know what I mean? It's Oxnard.
Danny Crave is also one of the locals. He's another friend of Brandon's brother and says the young Brandon he remembers is not some angry teenager with white supremacist sympathies.
I mean, Brandon was like one of the best kids on the beach. You know what I mean? He was the only kid on the beach that didn't want to party, that didn't want to smoke weed, that didn't want to drink, that, you know what I mean? Like, you wanted to go to school, you wanted to do everything right.
Brandon's close friend, 22-year-old Darren Larkin, who's part black, agrees.
He ain't no racist, he ain't no skinhead, nothing like that. He's a solid cat from the beach.
Randy Hecht is a consultant for the defense who spent 20 years in police and FBI gang task forces.
So if it wasn't a white supremacist gang, and you're not even sure it was a gang, what was it?
It's a group of kids. I've talked to probably 100 people throughout the course of this investigation, and nobody believed he's a white supremacist, except for the DA.
Locals here have been protesting the fact that the DA charged Brandon as an adult for murder.
So save Brandon.
David Wentworth testified at the trial on Brandon's behalf.
He's done a bad thing, but he should be treated as what he was, a 14-year-old little kid.
But what explains why Brandon was carrying a copy of Hitler's manifesto on the day of the shooting? His 8th grade teacher, who traded in her school ID for a coffee chain apron, says she repeatedly offered an explanation.
I had been telling the DA, you've got this white supremacy thing all wrong.
An innocent homework assignment could turn Brandon's so-called motive upside down.
It was a World War II research report, and so each child had to have several documents from that report.
In Brandon's case, Don says he chose to do the report on Adolf Hitler, and he actually checked out that infamous book from the school library. When we come back, we sit down with 6 of the jurors.
The defense made a point that the adults let these children down.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I feel
Absolutely.
that 100%.
And why are they wearing wristbands with the killer's name on it?
Surely you're not blaming Larry for his own death.
When we continue. It was one of the most notorious cases in Ventura County history, which is why it was moved to LA County for 8 weeks of trial.
Hopeful for fair trial.
I don't want to comment.
Was Brandon McInerney guilty of premeditated murder? Or was it manslaughter, provoked by Larry King's relentless gay bullying? The distinction would mean the difference between a life sentence or being freed while Brandon was in his 40s. The jury deliberated for 17 hours over 4 days, but they could not come up with a verdict. A hung jury, a mistrial, meaning he could be retried.
What tripped you up?
I don't think everyone was open to just looking at the evidence. I mean, looking at the evidence.
It was a 7-5 split for manslaughter.
How many of you believed Brandon should have been tried as an adult for first-degree murder? Not one of you.
These jurors agreed Brandon was guilty of the lesser charge, but 5 others believed he was guilty of murder.
How many of you were convinced it was a hate crime? Not even close. Why do you shake your head, Nancy?
They tried to present to us as jurors. It was, to me, way off base.
Actually, all 12, that's one thing that we did agree on.
Yeah.
All 12 of us agreed that it was not a hate crime.
Why?
They were really working on a report on Anne Frank and Hitler, and all of them were, and it's 8th grade.
None of them say they were pushing for a not guilty verdict. They were just divided over the degree to which Brandon should be held responsible.
Were you at all worried that a child might actually get away with murder?
I don't consider the sentence that we were told he would get after we deliberated and found out what it was for manslaughter is getting away with it. I don't think 20 years in prison is getting away with it.
What about Larry? I mean, there might be people at home thinking, boy, you guys, don't forget, there was a boy who also was murdered, shot in the head.
Forgot that. Never. Not as a group, not as individuals, never.
Larry's future was lost forever. Brandon's family is still trying to save his.
What he did is horribly wrong. No one's doubting that. I'm not doubting it anyway. My brother deserves to, pay a punishment. He definitely does. But from the age of 14,